My name's Chris Price. I have my little badgy thing here. I'm actually a member of the OpenDaylight Technical Steering Committee, and I'm a member of the OPNFV Technical Steering Committee. And let's not start with the questions slide. That's a bad place to start. We can go to the beginning. No, we are at the beginning. Okay, good. So, for those of you who are not aware, what is OPNFV? OPNFV intends to be a carrier-grade, integrated, open source platform for network functions virtualization. So basically, we are a cloud platform, or we are a variety of cloud platforms at the end of the day. We do a lot of integration of OpenStack, OpenDaylight, ONOS, OpenContrail. We use Neutron as well. Additionally, we introduce KVM versions which are intentionally built to accelerate NFV workloads. We have OVS extensions. And what we're really trying to do is make sure that the telco or the carrier networking or the networking use cases that are really important for the telecommunications and carrier industry are achieved in the platform and can be proven to be achieved in the platform. So a quick question, who has installed Liberty this year and got it up and running? Okay. Who has installed it without DevStack? Okay, good, we have one at least. Was it just Liberty with Neutron, or did you have an SDN controller in?
Yeah, I also installed it.
Okay, there you go, okay. So what we do is we basically bring up a data center. We have, I'll get to the details. So we formed through the ETSI architectural framework, which is really clear in this picture. Okay, colors are missing. Let me see if I can try. No, that's not going to help. Yeah, it could be on the projector side. Has it been consistent, or is it just me?
That was the worst I've seen.
Okay, that might just be our color scheme that's causing problems. See if that, no, it didn't. Okay, it doesn't matter. So we take inspiration from ETSI. We take inspiration from a lot of standards development organizations, ETSI, IATF, ONF. But primarily we're looking at the ETSI architecture. How does a virtualization platform look in the context of me trying to run applications and trying to orchestrate services across that platform, including the wide area network? So we took a swing at this and we thought, okay, how are we going to do this? And so we created an architecture, and you'll see I'm going to stand over here because I like pointing at things, but on this side you see your basic virtualization platform, virtual storage, virtual compute, virtual networking. And that is really what we do. We're not doing anything amazingly new here. This is a pure virtualization platform. But what we also do is we create an open source foundation and program around this. We have three verticals that we focus on. Integration, which is bringing in components, taking OpenStack Liberty, getting OpenDaylight working with it, getting ONOS working with it, getting OpenContrail integrated, introducing new vSwitch flavors. We have testing. We do a lot of testing, and that's why this is such a good follow-on from the last discussion. We take Tempest, we take Rally, we take Robot, we take all of the upstream component testing. So every test you do in OpenDaylight, when we deploy OpenDaylight on a physical data center, we will run those. We will make sure that those tests work in context on a physical infrastructure, not just in a VM. Like, this is truly from a remote location, from a jump host. We will evaluate an OpenDaylight solution integrated to OpenStack running a 3-blade HA solution. And we will do that with all the tests. So all the work that gets done in OpenDaylight we consume and we leverage and we try and build upon. We also do a lot of scenario testing. We have an SFC scenario, for instance, where we are running some end-to-end test cases. So we have an OVS, which is patched with the SFC stuff. We have an OpenDaylight, which is running SFC from Beryllium. And then we will also introduce Taka so that we can basically orchestrate an SFC solution and then run tests to make sure it actually works end-to-end. And that's what we do in the testing piece. And then on the new features, SFC is a really good example of a new feature. You can't run SFC today. It doesn't exist in all of the upstream communities that you need it to exist to make it work. It just doesn't. So we work with the developers. So as I said, we have a patched OVS. We have to take non-trunk OVS in order to make SFC work. We have OpenDaylight. We were pre-Beryllium. We were deploying the pre-Beryllium OpenDaylight with service function chaining just to make sure we could get it to work. Now we're on Beryllium because Beryllium's out, which is great. as well as this, we have a continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline. So everything is automated. It's all DevOps, right? I mean, this is just how we work. You bring things together, you try them as much as you can. We have spun up OpenStack on physical infrastructure 1,377 times this year. Right? This is automated. It's very easy for us. We push a button and it's done. 8 hours later, we're done. So we have triple O deployments, we have fuel deployments, we have foreman deployments, we have Juju deployments. We integrate various open SDN controllers. And with all of those different flavors, we have 24 flavors we're carrying at the moment, and we have deployed 1,377 times so far. By the end of the year, that number will be significantly larger. But we mean business, and we really mean business in the context of trying it, failing, trying it, failing. The faults that we see when we're running Neutron HA, we can manually deploy a network, but we can't use heat. Why? Well, we're still working with the OpenDaylight guys to figure that one out completely, but there are some little tweaky bugs that you don't really find until you get to the point of, I have, my 3-blade HA control solution running towards a redundant compute solution, and I'm trying to push a heat template down to use service function chaining, and it's not working. And that's where we are. We're trying to solve those types of problems. And that means that when we're done, it should be usable by operators, and that's really the intention. So we shipped Arno. Arno was our first attempt. We formed back in October of, I just lost everything. Hyatt is trying to connect to me, sorry. We formed back at the end of 2014, and we got our first release done in 2015, and that was basically OpenStack with OpenDaylight. That's what we did. We had a foreman and a fuel-based deploy, and we got it running. What we really did in Arno was we built a physical infrastructure, we standardized it, we built a CI/CD pipeline so we could automate the deployment of OpenStack and OpenDaylight. We built test cases, and we figured out how to pull all the tests and get them all running in an automated fashion. So we built the foundation for actually doing good stuff. In Brahmaputra, we expanded. So Arno looks a little bit like this before I move on. It's, as I mentioned, it's pretty basic, OpenDaylight, OBS. As you can see, the integration project there was called Bootstrap Get Started because we started with nothing. We had absolutely nothing except a Jenkins server which didn't do anything and a few empty Git repos. So this is what we did for the first 8 months to get to this point where we had testing and we had a deploy. For Brahmaputra, it was about much more. It was about showing that we can deliver features, showing that we can integrate things which are cutting edge, which aren't able to be done at this point anywhere else. And so what did we do? End-to-end NFV feature realization at the system level. It's just exactly what we do. Massive parallel, well not massive, it depends how you see massive, but a lot of parallel projects participating. 35 projects, over 140, I think we're 170 developers now, basically bringing the work they're doing upstream and getting it running on an infrastructure. We are 170 people tracking in OPNFV. Those 170 people are represented by many hundreds more in the upstream communities. I work for Ericsson. We have a bunch of guys in OPNFV. They're doing a lot of work to integrate, validate, and test the work that all of our OpenStack guys, all of our OpenDaylight guys, all of our OVS guys are actually doing in other communities, and we try and bring all of this through and get it together. So what we see as representative in OPNFV is really the tip of the iceberg, or the piece that's doing the integration and validation work. Brahmaputra looks a little bit different. As you see, we have a lot more SDN controller integration. OpenDaylight was a starting point, not a decision. So it's important for us that we don't choose the best of anything. We don't care what the best or the worst is. We care on proving that they can do what they say they can do. We don't pick winners. We use OpenStack exclusively because no one's bought anything else yet. We're not tied to OpenStack. We're not tied to OpenDaylight. But these are the components that we have basically bought in. On the integration side, we do a lot of alignment work, and that's hard. So talk to Red Hat, talk to Ubuntu, Canonical, talk to Mirantis, and then try and agree on how things should look when you're deploying a solution. This is difficult to do. It's a challenge, and alignment takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes a lot of discussion. So we do a lot of work on alignment when it comes to how a system gets deployed into an infrastructure. We have the installers, of course, and we have the scenarios. On the testing, Func test, again, we pull much more test cases now. We're pulling many thousands of test cases. So when we do a deploy, we're basically running Tempest Rally Robot test cases for about 4 hours against the system. We do a lot of validation. And what we want to prove by that isn't that we can run someone else's test cases, it's that those test cases function in the context that we've deployed them. The system testing is very important to us. This is how do you automate the spinning up of an application? How do you orchestrate that using heat? How do you remove it? Can you add an application and remove it and have your data center in the same state that it was, or is there leakage in the system somewhere? These are the things we're looking for. And performance. How do things work end to end? We have a lot of performance focus on vSwitching. We have performance focus on how quick and easy is it to actually deploy into the virtual infrastructure. We have a lot of focus on testing, and then some of the new features that we have come through. How am I going for time? Okay. So on the testing, 5 times more tests in function test. As mentioned, the component testing is very important to us. That's where we take the work that Upstream Communities, that OpenDaylight does, and we use that. We reuse as much as we can. If we want to add a component test for OpenDaylight, we will come to OpenDaylight and do it. We don't really want to carry things ourselves. We have a strong philosophy of Upstream first. If there is a community that we can go to and get stuff done, we will go there and get it done there, and then we'll bring it in locally. We don't want to fork, because that's the road to damnation. So Yardstick is a very important testing project for us. The Yardstick team is comprised of a group of people that want to do system-level verification, end-to-end test cases and what have you. They want to prove that a virtualization system works. We have a lot of members of our Yardstick team who are also members of the ETSI NFV TST 101 work item. So the ETSI team are basically trying to standardize how a virtual infrastructure can work so that operators can use it in a consistent way. And what we do is we basically write the tests that they are defining. This is what we would like to be able to see done. So we write a test to prove that we can actually do it. And this is really important to us because it helps us create that coupling between what we have in the open source communities and what operators and other users are expecting or wanting from the system. VSPerf is one of our growth areas, virtual switch, performance characterization. We're able to, on any given infrastructure, spin up a project which is going to do performance evaluation of your vSwitches depending on how you've deployed them. Moving on, more on deployment integration. I mean, OpenStack, SDN controllers, integrating new KVM versions, integrating new vSwitches. These are the sorts of things that we want to do. We have a vision that I'm an OVS developer and I come to OPNFV and I see that there's a problem with OVS. I want to go to OVS, I want to write a patch. 2 hours later, I want to see that running on a physical infrastructure. I mean, that's my vision. It shouldn't take more than 2 hours to have a patch in an Upstream community running on one of our firehose infrastructures. That is where we want to be. We're not quite there yet. We haven't quite managed to automate everything. But I can certainly say that if I push a patch one day, I can have that in my nightly job, so I can know the next day. And that's actually not too bad, given that we're 18 months old. Infrastructure and testing. So I talked a little bit about firehose. We have a lab. It's our own lab. It's hosted by the Linux Foundation. It's got, I think, 18 blades in it. We run 2 pods and a number of standalone servers for doing jobs. And that's good. That's what we have. But what we also have is a long and strong community of physical infrastructure developers and users. We have, I think it's 12 labs around the globe. China, North America, Europe. Not sure if everyone in Japan yet, but anyway, we have 12 labs around the globe, all with different infrastructures, all with different storage, all with different compute. We have an ARM lab, so you can actually deploy the OPNFV system onto an ARM system and run exactly the same test cases on an ARM infrastructure. We couple all of this up to our central infrastructure, and we basically federate across all of these labs. So when we delivered Brahmaputra, we didn't do all our testing in a Linux Foundation lab. We did our testing across the globe. We ran scenarios across the various infrastructures we have around the globe, and we got feedback on different types of infrastructure. Dell, HP, Intel, you name it. I mean, there are labs out there which support all of these different switches. And that's what we really, really want to achieve. We want our platform to be able to be run on any lab. It shouldn't just be coupled one-to-one. It needs to be separated. This removal of dependency on the physical infrastructure is something that we're really trying to drive forward. Carrier grade enhancements. We still like the term carrier grade. It's becoming a little old now, but we still use it. We do a lot of upstream collaboration. We have monthly calls with the OpenDaylight community. We don't always meet them because you guys are head down in Beryllium or we're head down in Brahmaputra. But we do try and make sure we keep good collaboration, good communication. Other things that we've done, fault management, we have some work that we've managed to push up into OpenStack so that we can get under 2 seconds swap over of a VM that's broken by good fault management reporting up through Celiometer through the notification system in Celiometer. Service function chaining is one of the big ones that we got in. That's required us to patch a significant amount of the platform in order to get that there. We're really excited to have it. We have layer 3 VPN support as well. Not yet with the BGP peering, but at least we have the ability to deploy the layer 3 VPNs. BGP peering should come in the next release so that all of a sudden I can basically expose the endpoints I have in my data center to a wide area network. And then we start to do real WAN type activities and we're able to tunnel through. We have IPv6. We have an activity focused on IPv6. It's doing good work. It's really doing a lot of gap analysis work. It's coming back to OpenDaylight and saying, hey guys, it works all right, but in this scenario, we really need to fix this so that we get full IPv6 support. Very important for us to have IPv6 through the entire end-to-end infrastructure. And some other things which are not really cloudy, like resource reservation. We have people that want to be able to set aside some resources for something they know is going to happen. It's like you don't do that in the cloud, but if we need to do it, we need to do it, and therefore we'll do the work on actually getting it through. Good. So I talked a little bit about collaborative development, working upstream. We have the simple philosophy, upstream first. Everything goes upstream as much as we can. We do have the ability to host code, but we just don't have a lot of people that want to start something new that doesn't already exist. I mean, in the virtual infrastructure space, you can find a project that's doing what you want to do in most cases, and then work with them and get the job done. It's not something that we need to do on our own. Good. The Pharos project I talked about, again, it's about facilitating collaborative testing. We have people associated with the labs, corporations associated with the labs. When we run our test cases, they want to know, did it work well? Where didn't it work well? Was there a problem with the switching? Do we have an issue running the hypervisor on this? These are the sorts of things that we work with the various Pharos communities on. It's still early days. We don't have a lot of concrete results coming out of this yet, but we certainly have results coming out. We're starting to store them. We can get dashboards up and running, so you can actually see latency times and things on a dashboard as they change through the release cycle. And importantly, most importantly, the applicability of the OPNFV across different physical infrastructures. We don't want to be coupled just to this or just to that. We don't want to be just on Intel. We want to be able to run on any infrastructure that you like. Good. So our upstream focus at the moment looks a little bit like this. These are the most focused on upstream communities, I guess we could say. OpenStack, of course, does provide a significant amount of what we get in the community. But we do actively work in each of these at this point in time. IETF is also another good one. We're trying to be more and more involved in the IETF Hackfest. We want to bring OPNFV use cases to IETF. We want to be able to spin up virtual infrastructure solutions and have some hacking happen at the IETF to see how we can get, for instance, the BGP peering of layer 3 VPNs working better. Our members then, just very quickly, a lot of members, a very big interest from the operator community. You'll see a lot of operators in our member list, and we have active operators. It's not just operators standing around and doing stuff. Operators are leading projects in OPNFV when it comes to policy and policy implementation in the infrastructure, when it comes to validation, testing. Everyone's got their hands in, everyone's working together. It's actually a great community on that front. By the numbers, I won't even go into this. You can read it if you like. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we need as a community. And I didn't prepare any material on this. But what we need is coexistence. I talked about this last time I had talked at an OpenDaylight conference. I said coexistence is it, and I think I had 3 slides that just said coexistence, and then I flipped the next slide. It said coexistence again. It's really, really important. Imagine you're spinning up a data center, and you want to use OpenDaylight as your data center technology. I want to spin up a tenant network here that I'm going to use for instance, residential CPE use cases. Then I'm going to want to have VPN, and I want to have my BGP peering, and I want to be able to do L3 VPN on that tenant network. Then maybe I have another tenant network where I'm going to run my evolve packet core in a virtual environment, then I want to be able to get service chaining up and running in that tenant network and actually steer and make sure I have policies in place for how the traffic is managed in that infrastructure. And all of a sudden I have a need to be able to use one set of features from OpenDaylight at the same time that I'm using another set of features from OpenDaylight. And let's say I do want to use things like the LSO API for layer 2 connectivity to the CPE when I'm doing my residential CPE solution, then I need to be able to underlay that under the VPN service that I have. Today in OpenDaylight, we have a lot of really good projects doing all the things that we need to get done. What we don't yet have solved in OpenDaylight is the ability to use those in conjunction with each other. You're kind of choosing one or the other at this point. I think I'm rubbing here. And we need to be able to choose one and another. Coexistence is really, really important. My data center can't be just for this or just for that. A data center should be able to be used for multiple different purposes, and that requires multiple different technologies to be enabled in the infrastructure at any given time. In the short term, I think that the easiest things for us to point to are, I need to be able to get the neutron integration working, so I need my OpenStack interfaces. I also need to be able to do the L3 VPN stuff at the same time, and in fact be able to receive that through the neutron interface, and I need to be able to get service function chaining working at the same time. These are 3 use cases that we know we need to do at the same time, and we can't today. I know there's a lot of good work going on in Coexistence. What we need is more of that. What we need is you guys to help us to figure out how to make these work together. And as soon as you have something that'll work, we will deploy it and test it. We can do that. We have the infrastructure. We can do it HA, we can do it standalone, we can do it virtual, we can do it on physical. We can choose how we're going to run it and how we're going to test it. We can participate in the development process. And that's really what we want. We want to participate more with the Hyatt Regency. All right. We want to participate more with what's going on in OpenDaylight. At the moment, there is a little bit of a gap between us. We find a bug, and then we send a ticket, and then someone looks at the ticket, and we're not really doing things together yet. Another thing that we have, which is really important from my perspective, is a bunch of infrastructure. We have the latest and greatest Cisco gear. We have the latest and greatest Dell gear. We have the latest and greatest HP gear. You want to know how OpenDaylight performance? Run the test. We have it. We will deploy it in a 3-way active cluster deployment coupled to Neutron, and we will hammer it and see just how good the performance is. That's really easy for us to do. It can just be part of any other run we do. 1,733 runs so far this year. We could be doing it for you daily. These are the types of things that we offer, and these are the sorts of things that we want to be able to work with the OpenDaylight community for. So I think I'm almost out of time. And I don't think I have much more to talk to. Well, the what's next? Much more of the same. More deploys, more integration, more use cases, more cutting edge development being deployed on our systems. That's what we want to see. We're also introducing Plugfest. So twice a year, every time we do a release, we've just done Brahmaputra, and next month we're going to have a Plugfest. So we're going to invite people to come along. If you have a commercial version of OpenDaylight that you want to see if it works, come along and plug it in. We don't allow commercial software into the platform itself, which is why we start the Plugfests. So if you have a commercial derivative, you can come and you can plug it in and you can see just how it works, if there are any issues that are found. If you want to try a new switch, come along. If you want to try a flavor of anything, the Plugfests are where we're going to have our community meeting with external members of potentially our community. But people that haven't been involved yet, or people that are on a commercial track and haven't really figured out how to get stuff into open source or how to work with the open source community. That's what we're trying to achieve at the Plugfests. First one's in California. No, not in California. It's at the Cable Labs facility.
In Louisville, Colorado?
Louisville, Colorado, of course, in Colorado. And the next one will be in Paris, in France, and then hopefully we'll go to Asia, and then we'll come back around. So we try and rotate around the world as well. We have a very diverse global community. Asia and Europe are probably the biggest resource pools that we have, and North America is probably the next biggest, but we have an extremely diverse community of developers and integrators. Testing and infrastructure improvements, we want to make it easier, we want to make it faster. 1,377 deploys by by March is good. Let's get it to 4,000 next year. I don't know. We need to improve and make things better. ARM, of course, is coming. Container support, for those of you interested in Collar, we're probably going to have spinning up a project around Collar. And we're going to be coming and talking to you about that, because when we do Collar, it's because we want to be able to do in-service upgrades of various components, which means that we want to be able to swap out the OpenDaylight version in real time in a running data center. I mean, these are the types of use cases that we really want to start to nail down. How we would do that is yet to be determined, but it's certainly something that we want to get started with. So we see Collar and the containerization, the microservice architecture of the virtual infrastructure manager as something which will help us with resilience and robustness and upgradability, so something that we want to focus on. Mano is also there. So leading up to Brahmaputra, we basically gave ourselves some constraints. We said, don't try and solve management and orchestration. Let's get the Vim running. Let's make sure we can get an infrastructure there that we can actually start to use. We've done that now. I think we've checked that box. We've said, okay, now we've got it running. We're deploying it all the time. Now we can move into the management and orchestration. How do we best use this? How do we make it easier for operators to use? How do we orchestrate things to happen in it? This is the next set of challenges, and there's a lot of industry activity around this, which is spinning up now, that we're very happy to be involved in. And hopefully what we'll see very shortly, so maybe, let's say we meet again at the end of next year, maybe it all just looks like a big Amazon cloud, and you can just go to the GUI and start to drag and drop stuff, and you don't know which lab you're doing your tests in, nor do you care. You're just like dragging something and say, run this test over here, and then you get a report back, and who knows where you were or what you were. And then you say, okay, now I want it on a particular Cisco switch, or I want it on a Juniper switch, and off it goes, and it comes back with a result. Maybe that's where we are at the end of next year. We're moving very fast, and we hope to continue to. So that's all I got, I think. So I can open it up for like half a question, if anyone has one.
Can you share a few words about performance testing and security? What do you exactly cover in these two important aspects?
Yeah, so performance testing, the majority of performance testing up until now has been on the forwarding plane. So there's a lot of focus on the vSwitch performance and switching performance. We have a test framework which has been developed and built and is available in the ecosystem now, which will do your performance testing. We have a project which didn't make it into Brahmaputra, which is incubating storage performance testing. So how do we get the best results in different types of storage architectures for different use cases? And then we have some initiatives around KVM to make KVM work better in different workloads. We haven't yet got, we actually have performance testing, but nothing targeting those specific areas just yet. We have some end-to-end performance tests. So we have performance tests for how much time does it take me to spin up a workload, how much time does it take me to tear down the workload, when I have the workload up and running, do I get latency in the system, where is the latency? These types of testing we have. So there's a broad selection of tests that we do, and it's different groups focusing on different areas. And on security, we have a security work group. We are now participating in the badging program. So there's a security badging program for open source communities. We plan to participate in that for Colorado, which is our next release. And in parallel for that, we have a security working group that are putting security guidelines together. So there's documentation coming through about how to best structure your system, how does security pertain to Neutron or pertain to KVM, how does that change if you start to use container technologies and things like that. So we plan to sort of bring out more or less, it's very similar to what you see in OpenStack as far as the security discussion is concerned, because it's more or less the same scope, I guess. But maybe the big difference for us is the fact that we focus on these data center deployments for HA types of technologies, and we start to look at those. But security is an area we're focusing on. We haven't done a lot yet, I have to admit. We didn't manage to release anything Brahmaputra. Yeah.
And if I could add to that quickly, I'm the project technical lead of the CPerf project in OPNFV, controller performance testing, SDN controller performance testing. Since we're in the OpenDaylight Hackfest, I thought maybe that was relevant. We didn't exist in the B release. We were too new for that, but we will exist in the C release, and we're getting spun up now, and so I can talk to you offline about how to contribute to that if you're interested. I would also add, to build off of Chris's discussions around, hey, you can get a patch into an Upstream project, and then a few hours later, it can be in OPNFV. I did most of that from the OpenDaylight side, so I will be giving a talk on Thursday Wednesday, very late on Thursday, about how to integrate into OPNFV from an upstream project's perspective. So my examples will be from OpenDaylight, but they should apply to ONOS or KVM or any other integrated project. Basically, the title of the talk is Continuous Delivery Pipelines for Open Source Projects. So please come to that if you want to see some nitty-gritty details about what Chris talked about at a high level here.
Cool, thanks, Dan. All right, thank you, everyone. I think I'm done. So,
Well, I was just going to ask, what is the name of the C release?
Colorado,
Thank you.
named after the river in Argentina.